We are joined this morning by three of the CEOs of our companies that we met along the tour, but in order to get to know them a little bit better, we thought we'd finish the day with a nice roundtable discussion about what's working, what's not working, and what we might be able to do together to improve entrepreneurship and job creation here in Pennsylvania and in York County. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Kristin Phillips-Hill for bringing us this great opportunity today, and our partners from Ben Franklin Technology Partners who also made the trip down to York, and we hope to be seeing a little bit more of you as we move things along here. But in order to keep the president on schedule, she's actually got a York Hospital board meeting, and she has carved out some time for us this morning. I'd like to reintroduce you all to Dr. Pamela Gunther-Smith.
Thank you, Jeff. So once again, welcome to York College and to the J.D. Brown Center. It's one of those types of things. We always talk about York College being a hidden gem of an institution. We're working very hard not to be so hidden these days, but I think that the J.D. Brown Center is also one aspect that oftentimes is hidden. And so it's really wonderful to have you all here to really kind of show the work that we're doing and the way in which we're partnering with various companies and entrepreneurs. We see it's a win-win partnership. Our students have access to, I would say, wonderful technology, mentors, internships that ultimately oftentimes turn into jobs. And for a small college like York College to be able to offer those types of experiences for our students is just a tremendous, tremendous plus. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we not only teach them in the classroom, but we also provide opportunities so that they experience the workforce, they know what it is to work on a problem, see it through, and so when they graduate, they are job ready. And we want to make sure that as many of them as possible end up staying in York and becoming citizens of the Commonwealth and of the region. So this is a very special place for us. I know that probably part of the conversation we'll talk about some plans that we have moving forward if it moves to in that direction. I think that we have demonstrated that we can do this and we do this well. I'd like to thank all of you again for coming and to our partners for all that you do for York College. We are not in the business of leasing space and office space. We are in the business of transforming lives and contributing. And so everyone who is in this space, one way or another, is contributing to the educational process that is going on here at the institution. So please enjoy the conversations. Thank you so much for coming, Jeff. Thank you, and to Oscar, thank you very much for working to put this together. Tim Garrison is here, who is the Dean of the Kinsley School of Engineering, Sciences, and Technology. And we have people here from the Economic Alliance as well. So it's a great day, and as my slogan that I use most frequently now, it's always a great day to be a Spartan. So welcome. Hope to see you back.
Okay, so we're not going to try to be too formal up here, particularly with these three guys. I'm the only one wearing a tie. I guess tech and tie don't mix.
Put this on. I probably should take it off.
I'm repping the York College green this morning. I think we've all met, but if you could maybe give a 30-second commercial on yourselves, and we'll start with you, Rich, and come back towards me, then we'll get started with some questions. But go ahead, Rich.
Sure. Rich Wurzbach, grew up in Philadelphia area, went to Millersville University, worked at Peach Bottom Atomic Power Station, southern end of the county, for 10 years. Also worked at the National Institutes of Health and started MRG Labs here in the J.D. Brown Center.
I'm Mark Zeleznock. I'm from York. I actually went to York Suburban. Left when I was 16, went to the West Coast, went to school at UC Berkeley, went to Caltech, got into the defense industry, ended up coming back to York after a couple entrepreneurial pursuits to kind of start this side business, which turned into Dataforma, which has been a fantastic success, and really got to rediscover this area, which I always felt finally, when you leave at such a young age, but to come back as an adult and actually find all the great things about York, and now we just continue to invest and grow our business here, and it's fantastic.
I'm Matt Bloom. I'm the founder and CEO of Crime Watch. Crime Watch is a public engagement technology company, public safety technology company that actually connects law enforcement in local communities. I lived around here. I live up at Lake Mead. I was working and actually became a single dad, my 4 children, and decided to start my own business as a way to create my own future and offer some flexibility. So I went out on my own, I started it, and I've been working on it ever since. And because of the ecosystem, Ben Franklin's here, I'm still alive, and our company's reached break even, and now we employ quite a few people and having a huge impact in the community. So pretty awesome.
Excellent. And this question's been maybe answered a couple of different ways, but if you could, Matt, being kind of the new kid on the block, again, maybe talk a little bit about why here and why now.
Well, so when you leave corporate life and you step out on your own and say, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, it is a really huge leap, because you're leaving all your support structures, all of the kind of known variables that affect your life, like the security of a regular paycheck and things like that. And when you step out, I didn't even know when I first did it that there was a community that I could connect to. And so over the years, we've kind of floated around and moved around, and we've actually toyed around with the idea of relocating the company out of Pennsylvania, where there seems to be a better ecosystem or community for entrepreneurs. And it wasn't until a couple years ago where I really needed help, and well, at this point, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, where I really needed help, and through my network of peers, they introduced me to Mark. And so Mark helped me solve some massive problems that probably could have killed the company if I hadn't had that network to connect to. And so over the years, I've just sort of been seeing kind of the hub grow here in York, and it made sense at some point when the timing was right to move our operation down here and be part of that ecosystem.
Great. Rich, any feedback on that?
Yeah, I think the why here aspect of it, and I mentioned earlier when we were touring that we were over on Pennsylvania Avenue, and I think the one story that kind of brought it home for me is we had an engineering student that showed up late to the lab one day, and I said, you need to get here on time. He said, I'm sorry, it took me a long time to cross Route 30 on my bicycle. And for me, I thought, there's some real value in trying to get closer to the resources that we need, and that is the students, the faculty, and so forth. And here we have that. And I think we're a pretty good choice for chemistry students who are looking for internships, because you walk to work, we're close, and so forth. So there's a lot of value in the proximity and the quality of the facilities that we have here.
Truth. Okay, sounds good. Resources, academic in nature. There's other resources too that are part of any successful ecosystem, and clearly in Pennsylvania, particularly in this region, Ben Franklin, right?
Yeah.
So they're kind of just really top notch. Refresh my memory, the three of you, were you all Ben Franklin portfolio companies?
We were and are.
Were and are. So Mark, okay, we'll start with you. So you did receive Ben Franklin funding. If it wasn't for Ben, would you have been able to find it elsewhere, or what about the Ben model work for you?
So yeah, I had access to money, but what Ben did for us was, I think, the expertise and the network. So what Ben does great around here is they could help us right here in York. I mean, I was based in San Francisco when we had our issues, and I didn't really know what was. I've met so many people through Ben. I've met Matt through Ben. I came in contact, I think, with you guys through Ben, and so. To me, it was also the expertise, and then someone who'd been experienced. I'd worked with Dick Hellison, tremendous experience as a CFO in the Silicon Valley. We were kind of kindred spirits and really helped us through, which was a tremendously difficult time that once again would have killed the business. And we were able to make it. And now we're a profitable business, growing here, and hiring the types of people that are coming out of your college, which, and we live in a knowledge economy now. You need to have a lot of specialized expertise. I know that your expertise is different from mine, but I mean, you need to find this stuff, and if you can't get it, so things have worked out. So yeah, Ben was a fantastic help for us, and getting us those talent and finding the people that we need to fit the niche positions that we have has been tremendous.
Yeah, I'll echo that yeah, the funding that's there is different than other available funding sources, and you can do some bridge work with that. But the expertise was huge for us. So just, for us, we're talking with Dick Hedelson about, Dick said, here's maybe a micro grant available for marketing purposes. And I said, okay, I can use that, and I'll do like a magazine article and this and that. And he said, is that where you're going to get the most bang? I mean, we're not talking a lot of money. It was like $2,000 or something. Is that where you're going to get the most bang for your buck out of that? I said, yeah, I think so. And he said, no, I don't want to hear I think so. I want to see the numbers. And forced me to go back and look at historically where we were getting most of our business, and it was in trade shows. Right, like 85% of my customers have come from trade shows. So I was able to pivot with that knowledge. So it's like there's some money, but it's smart money.
Yeah.
It's the advice, it's the support that you get. And when you're trying to be an entrepreneur and you're trying to stand a startup company, it's huge. It can make the difference. And so Ben Franklin's been very valuable for us. There's no doubt about it. The Keystone Innovation Zone was also very significant for us. It put that focus there for us, which was to try to stop the brain drain, reverse the brain drain, and to make these partnerships with the colleges and universities. And just one anecdotal story about that, part of that was these workshops were created. And I went to a workshop very early on, and they were talking about intellectual property. And I didn't even realize at that time that at the top of the clock was ticking, and I had a couple weeks to file for a provisional patent, or I would have lost some of the IP that I have today. So it's been a combination of Commonwealth-funded programs, I think, that have really, really made the difference for us.
And when we think about KIZ, would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Silas Chamberlain and the York County Economic Alliance, who here as our county partner helped to administer the programs and the tax credits through the state program, and they're doing a great job with that. Particularly as the Murata Center in Carlisle is shuttering, we've been onboarding Matt and perhaps one or two other fantastic companies. There have been some hurdles we've had to overcome, but I'm looking at our elected officials. They're doing a great job with helping us navigate that, so thank you, guys. Okay, so a little lightning round, and I know this is important stuff in Pennsylvania. Your favorite football team?
Eagles.
Steelers.
I got to go with the Eagles, I guess.
Yeah, all right. I'm looking at Joe Hackett.
Did Kevin Cracker pay you to say?
I'm not a huge football fan, but my 12-year-old is a diehard Eagles fan. And I was very fortunate this year. I got tickets to Redskins Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Right on the 50-yard line, second row. It was an incredible experience.
The
After
last game of the
I'm
season?
kind of
Earlier.
earlier. It was right after Carson Wentz got injured. Ticket prices dropped drastically, so I picked them up dirt cheap, and so now I'm an Eagles fan.
We'll take them. We'll take them. There's plenty of room. Okay. So we've heard a lot of things about what's happening. What's going well? What's going well here locally at your college? What's going well with the Commonwealth and some of the programs that you've been able to tap into? Tell us some of the things that keep you up at night, Matt, as far as being kind of chief cook and bottle washer for a small business, tech business
I
in
don't know if
PA.
you really want me to open that can of worms, but speaking to the previous question, yeah, I didn't have access to money. I was building a complex solution for a complex problem. Ben Franklin Technology Partners in their funding program, it wasn't like, hey, here's $500,000, go do something with it. It was like micro investments with guidance and objectives and goals every time, which was critical. Smart money. The KIZ Innovation Zone, like that for us, we reached a point of break even, but we don't have enough financial security to justify going out and hiring people as rapidly as we need to. So the KIZ program, the money that we'll receive back in that this year, is going to be the difference between us hiring the people we need and not.
Okay.
So it has a direct and profound impact. What keeps me up at night is always cash flow, because we as a company, we've reached that point of break even. We've chosen to do it with minimal outside investment. We have a very loyal and committed customer base, but our product is very active in the market. There's we get almost 1 million visitors a month to our web properties, so there's a lot of maintenance and things that go along with that. And we're just in that precarious position where we have too many people, families and people relying on us for financial support, that if the cash flow isn't there, or if I have a payable that's 60 days later or something like that. And so that's probably what keeps me up the most at night.
Understood. Mark?
I would say development and finding talent. We're a little more mature than Matt. We have a great business. It's not going anywhere. It's well established. I mean, because we're a cloud business, I mean, our margins look like Microsoft's on a small scale. But for us, it's finding talent that we can grow into very specified roles. And when we spend 2 years developing an individual, or 3 years, I can't lose them. So we need people who are going to have a mindset that I'm coming to York, I'm staying. I don't want people coming here who are going to say, well, I'm going to do 2 years and I'm going to go to Washington, I'm going to go to Philly, or I'm going to go to New York City. So we really look for the local people who are going to invest here because we're investing in them as well. It's a mutual beneficial relationship. So that's the thing that worries me the most, because I can't just turn on the taps and say I'm going to hire 50 people and train them up. You know, there's a long cycle to that. So we're looking at long-term relationships with the people who live here, and that's important. That's one of the reasons why we are here. In the Silicon Valley, it's very predatory. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of money chasing a small number of people, and we found that for our business, this was an advantage. That a lot of, from where I was coming, was like, well, what are you doing out there? Well, because you don't know. It's fantastic. So we've had success. I'm hoping that York College can continue to ramp up their production of new students. Even Penn State, you know, we've had people we've hired from Penn State. Our local universities are fantastic. So that's the thing that I keep. I know I've worked with Vince Mollet. He's done a fantastic job for us, helping continue to build out our team here locally. So yeah, that's what keeps me up at night. Keeping that pipeline going and continue to feed a business that has huge potential to grow.
Dr. Garrison was here. He had to leave for another engagement, but just so you know, you talk about ramping up our engineering computer science talent. For the first year, the Kinsley disciplines, computer science and all the engineering disciplines, we were the largest school here at York College.
That's awesome. It's going to continue to grow. The demand's high.
So,
Yeah.
and you guys have been a part of that, so thanks. Rich, anything to add there?
Yeah, I sleep pretty well, but I think that as we grow, in having the resources to do that effectively, like HR is like a weakness. Yet I've gone to Ben Franklin and we have an HR specialist that has helped us create like software and systems and to onboard people and whatnot. You know, as an entrepreneur, you're trying to do so many different things and wear so many different hats. And if you can just take one important aspect of it and have someone you can rely on, it's really significant. And we've done that. We had a big transition here. We had a long-term kind of accounting person who moved on. And to bridge into bringing the next person along, we had Ben Franklin resources come right into our facility and help us make that transition. And you talk about the little things that can sink you. And it's just something like that. A key employee decides they need to be somewhere else, and something as important as making payroll and the whole financial part of your business. But having that backstop is maybe why I'm able to sleep at night.
Yeah, well said. I mean, here you were a chemist.
Yeah.
You were an aeronautical engineer, and next thing you know, you're running marketing, you're running accounting, you're
Right.
running sales.
You need help with that. You need at some point to be able to say, I feel good about this because I have a strong support. And Ben Franklin plays a really important role for me in that regard.
Fantastic. Okay, lightning round. Star Wars or Godfather? Mark?
Godfather.
Star Wars.
Ooh, that's tough. I'm going to go with Godfather.
Okay.
And I only say that because that's my father's favorite movie, and he has dementia, and we play it all day long. and if I had to have one movie to watch for the rest of my life on an island, it would be The Godfather. I'd watch it 200 times.
You'd probably watch it more than that if you were on a deserted island.
No problems.
Very good. We've got a few more questions. Is there anything that anyone's thinking out here? Seth?
On your dessert
round.
Oh, solar.
I think at this point you're probably out of room unless there's some nook and cranny you can show us, like an underground bunker or something like that. So what's your plan on continuing to grow this into the future?
Well, that's a great question, Seth. Thanks for asking it. So Pamela alluded to it in her remarks. So when we purchased the land and the property that we're in about 10 years ago, with the idea that we would figure out the uses as we moved on. It was a land banking kind of move for us. But as we've evolved, we've kind of identified the use, and we think some of the things we've been doing with these companies, some of the other inquiries that we're receiving, and some of the other disciplines that we're looking to grow, give us the purpose to start to think about the building across the street, which we talked about this being the manufacturing, the place where we house the paper. They created the paper across the street as part of the Schmidt-Alt paper plant. So our goal, what we're looking at doing right now is actually repurposing the building across the street and housing some of our more mature companies that are looking to hatch. Certainly Dataforma being kind of the tip of the spear with that, but with some others, and certainly with Matt and another group we've just recently brought on with Return Logic, another one of the Murata companies. They're looking at some hockey stick style growth here in the next year to 2 years. We'd hate to lose them just based on the fact that we don't have the space to put them. In addition, cybersecurity is another area that's growing here at York College. We've got a terrific opportunity to actually build one of the only cybersecurity institute in this region, but we need the space to do it. And frankly, the space across the street lends itself very well to all of those uses. Again, for all the same reasons we've heard from our panel here today, the adjacencies to the Kinsley Engineering School, partnerships with Ben Franklin, ecosystem with other tech CEOs, all of those things we think we can scale up. And shameless plug, we've put in for a RACP grant that we've certainly been talking to a number of our state legislators about and the administration. So I've got some really cool pictures we can look at after, but
It's exciting because, and I like this because when we talk about the ecosystem that we have here that's starting to come together with Ben Franklin, with these guys, our collective, skills, and you start to see it coming together, and you start to realize this is what's going to help us all grow. We still have a very collegial attitude. We're not, I'm not worried about him stealing my guys, and I'm not worried about stealing, but we work together because we found that at this stage of the game, it works great. But it's an opportunity because the demographics are changing here too in the country. I've been living in an urban environment for the last 27 years in the San Francisco Bay Area. I just split. I am living in Las Vegas now, but it's a less urban situation. New York City lost 80,000 people in the last 2 years. They're coming. They're coming to places like York, the York-Lancaster Triangle. Nashville's had tremendous growth. People can't afford to raise their family. So what I love about this is you're now setting yourself saying, hey, set up shop here. Why look so far? I mean, people, this is a fantastically located location to build a business. And I think with the modern internet technology and with connectivity, people can work from home half the time. So now they can come here, have their beautiful home, come in 3 days a week at the office. I know in my business, that's not a problem at all. I have, you only saw a fraction of our workforce because they're working all over the place. And so, but this is a great place to base our business, and the state's been really fantastic. And people, I've always looked at the state of Pennsylvania as, it's got great tax situation. I mean, everyone says it's too high tax, but I'm coming from California. I mean, this is heaven. And so you have a lot of advantages, and I think that's going to come. So let's, this is going to be a showcase for that, and I think it's going to grow. I think you're going to fill it quick.
Yeah, if you want more of what we're doing, you've got to have a place to put it. So there was a question to me as we walked through the lab, what do I do as we grow? And my business model is not like, I need 5 more labs like this. This is like a development center. This is an expertise center. And my business model is then to share that technology with labs around the world. But the piece that is still going to have to funnel through York, Pennsylvania is these devices that I showed you when we walked through the lab. So there's a high-tech manufacturing component that's going to grow as our technology grows. We might be able to leverage this lab. It's hard to pull out a lab and put it somewhere else, so that's good. We might be able to leverage this lab very well, but we're going to need space to do some we even had a robot in here the other day doing some of this, manufacturing automation and so forth, and having space to do that. I'd rather make it close to what we have anchored here than have to find space somewhere else. And to follow up on what you said about York and the uniqueness of York and what because I'm hiring. You just heard I hired a guy today and last week. And what I'm finding is that while these are good paying jobs relative to what other markets have to pay people because of cost of living and other things like that, I can be more competitive. I can still have a good paying job, but I'm more competitive than other parts of the country because the input costs that I have from a salary perspective is I'm leveraging a lot of things that are drawing people to this area. So I think that's a intrinsic Central Pennsylvania benefit for me.
Yeah, or you could even pay the same salaries that they're paying in the cities, and people are taking more home pay because they're paying less in taxes, and their costs are less. And the house costs $300,000 versus $1 million.
Right.
You know, San Francisco, the median value is and I know it's cross country, but it's like $1.5 million for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. You know, I mean, in New York, it's amazing.
So can I ask a question? Do you want to follow up on what I have to say?
I mean, I can contribute to that. We recruited a young lady from New York City last year, and we had a job description out there for customer success director, and I didn't know what I was going to get. And one of the applications came in. She was working at a startup in New York City, had been there for a while. She was an entrepreneur, had some entrepreneurial history herself, Division I soccer player, Duquesne, just like on paper was way more qualified than I ever expected. But she was looking to join a startup in the Harrisburg, greater Central Pennsylvania region, wanted to move back to this area so she could buy a house, start a family, and do all these things. And we ended up hiring her, and I can't even describe, because the experience and the knowledge that she had from her own past coming into our business now, she just immediately had an impact. And it's like so that's the other benefit, is we can recruit people back into the area.
Oh, yeah.
We suck talent with great skills, knowledge, and experience from these major markets back into the area that have an immediate impact on us, which is, it's pretty awesome, because at this point, I feel like we've had a significant amount of success with her contributions in the last year. So totally beyond what I expected.
That's awesome.
To have happened, so.
That's fantastic. So you have several legislators sitting here in the room, and I'm already hearing funding concerns, right? Workforce development. Package of legislation went through the House recently on some workforce development issues, connectivity. We had a lot of action. We know that as for your county, we're sort of eyeing what 5G can do, connecting people in more rural areas so they can have that wonderful rural living experience, but work in a, what is it, Silas? Silas still here, edgy? Historically edgy, kind of a community. If there's anything else that you think legislatively, we kind of view our role as creating the environment where you can thrive and you can flourish. And so we're sort of like the groundskeepers at one of those football stadiums. We want everything to be nice and level, well marked, and we want you to go out there and play the best game that you can play and be successful. So other than workforce development, connectivity, investment, what are some of the other challenges you think that we need to address as legislators?
I'm trying to, I would say, well, I think anything that has to do with the university system, number one. I think anything helping us kind of network, figure out, getting the talent, supporting. I'm human resources focused, so that's kind of where I come from. I think the connectivity is a huge issue for our workforce. I want to make York a more attractive, forward-thinking place. So anything we can do that's exciting from that standpoint, that puts us as, there are things happening in York County, I'm a full heart supporter. A lot of it's, getting people to discover York County as a place that I want to be. Why? They're doing a lot of forward-thinking things in that area, and we need to do some of that stuff. A lot of this is perception. I also think Ben Franklin, anything you can do for Ben Franklin, I've always been a big booster for them. They do a really unsung job around here, and the reason for that is because of the lower density of our population across the state compared to some of these more, they're able to aggregate and find these entrepreneurs and put them up, and they do it in a non-predatory way. I mean, I'm telling you, it's fantastic. And so I think that money goes a long ways, and when I look at the tax revenue that I'm paying to the state, I don't even live here. And it's a gift that keeps giving. It's just getting bigger. So I think those types of services are great. I think anything that we can do to aggregate technology like this building, we're going to take all these elements, we're going to put them all together, and that's where the magic's starting to happen. That kind of support, I think, concentrating the limited things that are going on now so that they can continue to grow and build that fire, absolutely, 100%. And I think that's going to give us the visibility outside of our area that's going to attract more talent and put York and Lancaster on the map.
Kristen, if I could, I'm not a panelist per se, but something you just, I don't know if it's even the platform that you all have to help us tell the story. And we're also partly at fault here. I'd like to think of York College as a great place, but it's almost like, as Pamela said, a hidden gem, or we don't tell the story enough. And Matt, when you met Mike Regan in there, I felt great, oh, they're friends. And I thought to myself, how does one of our state senators in our delegation not know that we recruited you down here? And that was a fault of ours. So we're not kind of promoting the cool stuff that's kind of happening maybe as well as we could or should be doing.
We are notoriously humble.
Notoriously humble.
Here in York County.
We need to be historically edgy.
We need to be out there telling people how great York County is and the amazing things that are happening here. And I think we sort of have this cultural instinct to not be too prideful.
Yep.
But we really should be more York County proud and York College proud, because we are doing some really amazing things here.
Oh, I think it'll pay dividends to do so. I think the demographics are in our favor right now. We need to be out there because you're competing against other areas that are doing the same. We've got Nashville. I got one of my top sales guys living in Austin. I mean, talk about transformation down there. There's no reason we aren't going to be one of those areas. Raleigh, Durham. So there's the sucking sound. I remember always seeing Ross Perot, the great job sucking sound. Well, it's coming out of the cities and now it's going to these kind of semi-suburban lifestyle places. Pennsylvania is set up perfectly. Look at our proximity to all these cities. We should be the first stop. We need to get out and say, hey, before you set up shop over there, come over here. And we've had a few billionaires move into Lancaster, and they've started to see there's some smart money that's starting to say, hey, what's going on? I know there's an article, I think you sent me, about how Pennsylvania finally has started to there's billionaires are popping up in places you never expected. Well, that's because people are fleeing, and they're starting to invest in places like this. So we need to get out there.
One very specific thing is the WedNet program. And so we've been leveraging that very effectively here. And you saw what we're doing from a technology perspective, but also it doesn't go anywhere unless the businesses recognize the value of this. It's a new way of thinking. Not all the education gets done at the university level. It has to go out to the businesses. So that kind of funding, it can be highly leveraged. So I do something as simple as hold a class here on lubrication best practices. And I'm attracting businesses from all over Pennsylvania. We hold workshops for the paper industry, for steels, for food processing. We just had a visit over here to the Frito-Lay facility. We've been to the former Glatfelter facility. What that does, and it's not a lot of money, it's like $850 per student in the class, but it makes the difference between them being able to say, I can send that person out there. Now the message gets out that they can take this technology that we're developing and leverage it to make those businesses more efficient, more effective, and to grow more. So it's a kind of a step. It's part of the education process, but it's not forgetting that there's people out there that are doing the work at the established companies that need an environment, a supportive environment of continuous education.
Seth?
Mark, you mentioned you're a San Francisco refugee.
I am a refugee or what do you call when you're cast out? Exile.
Expat. Exile.
There's a good discussion. Chris brought up what more can we do? But there's a story of things we shouldn't be doing. I think San Francisco is an example of that. What was life like in San Francisco?
Yeah. So here's what's really interesting, and I think. Living here in York, we kind of are like hobbits in our little hobbits, and it's a beautiful life, and we don't really see, and we always kind of say, well, we're not, we look at our own problems, but I don't think we really, I've been living in these areas, and I'm a native Yorker, so I kind of had that perspective, and I've never really given that up. So there's been tremendous success there. Okay, it started with the growth of Silicon Valley and all these elements that we have here, but on a bigger scale. You had the defense industry coming in there at Sunnyvale, that Lockheed Martin, I remember then they had Stanford, all these, so it grew. But it's become a place where now only the biggest companies can survive because the cost of living is so high. It's a very attractive, beautiful climate and all this kind of stuff. But now they're starting to have the social issues that come with this, and it's starting to degrade the quality of life to the point where it's hard for most technology businesses, except for the very largest, to survive. Okay, so our business, we have a great business. I'm not paying my engineers $800,000 a year. I mean, the salaries there are tremendous at the top. You wouldn't believe it. And how can you afford to live there? Okay, so you're starting to have issues there, and then you also have the social issues and then the taxation that comes with it. Taxes there, I think top brackets are 13%. They have taxes, they tax the water, they tax this, they tax that. It is so hard to do business there. We did business there because I was the only California employee. And what my CFO had to go through, he was like, God, when are you gonna leave? And I've looked at it and said, you know what, I don't want to build my business here. I want to build it in a place like, and I New York. So new, K-N-E-W, not New York, because I'd worked there too. And built a business there as well. So I think it's always been a secret. And so I think so those conditions are getting to a point where it's really unlivable for the vast majority of, you would believe how disgruntled people are there right now. The articles are all about it. It's the haves and the have-nots, and it's unsustainable for really a good middle-class workforce, upper middle-class workforce. This place can support that, can support the growth. We have the land, we have the quality of life, we have the location, and I'm telling you, I really believe that there is a demographic change. I recently sold my house to a young millennial couple. When I bought that house, I knew that when the demographics come, they're going to want to raise families. Most couples, I couldn't believe what my house sold for. It was a small little 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And I look at it and I say, most of these young millennial families are not going to be able to raise their children here. What are they going to do? They're going to say, I want to leave New York City, I want to go work for Crime Watch, I'm going to go raise a family, I'm going to go live out there on Lake Mead, your Lake Mead, not my Lake Mead, and out in Vegas. But and I'm going to raise my children and go to great schools. Schools here are fabulous. I can't tell you. I think people forget how good the education is here in Pennsylvania, and the mindset of the people. I think Penn State's a fabulous institution. My father-in-law went to school. He got his master's degree there. He came from China. He was a world-class researcher. Our high schools are fantastic. You can get a public education. So all the elements are here, and that's what I think we need to get on the map, because this movement's happening. These kids, these millennials are having families. They're ready. They want to get out. Where are they going to go next? We need to put out a shingle.
I'm going to play off what Mark said. So you're talking about San Francisco, right? One of the things that frustrates me and has created a cynicism in me is the whole idea of all of these people out there playing startup. And I call it playing startup because they're playing with fun money, they're playing with ideas, and everybody supports these ideas. All these ideas are going to be the next unicorn that creates billion-dollar opportunities, so let's play startup, right? And Silicon Valley, San Francisco area is like the hub of this mindset. One of the things that I've noticed with the entrepreneurs that are successful in this region, myself and my small group of peers that I socialize with, none of us are building startups. We're all creating businesses.
Yes.
And almost all of us are building businesses that come from real problems that we've experienced or witnessed in the real world, opportunities to improve things or processes that we've seen that were broken, or to solve problems that personally have affected us. And it creates a different mentality, and one of the mentality factors in that is that we all are trying to create a business. The one thing that I've always talked about with Ben Franklin is, from the beginning, because they knew my story, they knew my product, they knew my problem I was trying to solve, they're like, you are not going to probably be able to go out and raise $100 million around this idea because you're located in central Pennsylvania, your family is big, and your obligations to your family, your children won't allow you to travel to San Francisco and all over. So you need to figure out how to create a business. How do you generate revenue? And Dick Hedelson worked with me from the beginning, used to meet with me weekly for breakfast to check in to see what I was doing. And I started generating revenue before I even had a product in the marketplace. So I got our first check for a 3-year deal from the Pennsylvania Crime Stoppers before we even had a product out. And I used that revenue to fund, and therefore I've been able to do, really on a minuscule amount of money, I've been able to do what companies similar to mine have had to raise $10, $18, $30 million to do. The amount of traction, the point that I've reached on meager resources The only reason why I've been able to do that is because I started the business in Pennsylvania.
I hope our friends at York County Economic Alliance got all of that on tape, because that's
We've got him lined up to speak.
that is a theme, and Richard and I have talked about this ad nauseum. And you heard me say, I stole his line. It's the 10-year overnight success stories that I've heard you kind of take and say we need to aggregate them and amplify them.
Well, that's the one thing that we see here, and it's interesting. So they call it the Silicon Valley Lottery. What they don't talk about are all the losers. There's a lot. I mean, look. So all these companies are going public. One of them actually is a local, Evan Sharp, who did Pinterest. But you're talking about
Right across the street.
10,000 new potential millionaires. I have an urban area of 7 million people. It's huge wealth disparity, and there's limited. We had 5,000 houses turn over in San Francisco. You have 10,000 millionaires, multimillionaires, fighting for that 5,000 turnover. What do you think is going to happen to pricing? It blows the market up. So, but what Matt was saying about the slow growth, it's like a built to last man. I mean, we've always had a profit orientation.
You're the same way.
Yeah.
That's just the way I was raised.
Oh yeah, there's something intrinsic here, right? It's a different kind of entrepreneur. It's not like, who can I get to give me all this money?
And then exit,
it might work, and it might not work, and whatever, and I might hit the lottery, like you say. But it's different here. It's like, I got a lot of skin in the game, and I got to start making revenue right off the bat. I can't just stretch this out. Before I met Dick and Steve, I met Judith Sen at Ben Franklin Technology Partners, and I tried to start my business right in the .com boom. Not after it was over, like in the middle of it when everyone was going wild. And I said, I've got this thing called elubes.net, and I'm going to aggregate all these lubrication things. And she was like, yes, just stop. She said, because this whole thing is coming to an end. And no one was talking about it at that point. It was like she knew, and Ben Franklin Technology Partners at that point knew that was not a path forward. She said, look, you're good at what you do. You can be a consultant. Start making money. Mm-hmm. And then use that and do this kind of slow build. And it seems like this area we're kind of built for that. It's a little bit of a different formula. And maybe that's where, in terms of what the legislators can do for us, is enable that, that piece.
Yeah, it's not that the startup model doesn't work. I mean, there's fabulous wealth being created, and some of these companies, even though they've never made a profit, they are amazing businesses that will turn. So I don't want to, they're doing something right out there in that way, but the model doesn't fit the rest of America.
Well said.
This is where the model for how America's going to grow is going to come from.
Yeah, even right here, we're central Pennsylvania, but we're not necessarily part of the Philly ecosystem. But we are lumped in with the Philly ecosystem, but we're not. So even getting the investor community in the Philly space to look at us is a leap. So to go from, if we can't necessarily get the investment from Philly, to think that we're going to be able to go out and raise from New York or Boston or
those are unique places.
The $10 or $20 million it takes to get a SaaS company off the ground, you're not going to be able to do it. So that necessity is critical, and I think maybe that's the narrative that you really play on as we go forward. And thinking from a legislative perspective is, what can you do to help early stage companies? For me, I talk about cash flow, and that keeps me up at night. If I have a $15,000 payroll to make, I might have the $15,000 in the bank, but I've got another $5,000 on top of that in taxes that I got to pay. And when you're an early stage company, those payroll taxes, sometimes it's like, man, I can't do a payroll, guys, because I can't afford all the other fees and things that go along with issuing that payroll. And that stings. So maybe there are opportunities out there to look at programs specifically for early stage companies that are, designed to help them. We got a great ecosystem. We got some great startup money to get those ideas to fruition. What's the next thing when you start generating revenue and you start pushing forward? You almost need a little bit of breathing room, so it's not immediately like, oh, he's making money, suck it all out. So there are definitely some opportunities there.
In a really self-serving vein, Steve Brawley with Ben Franklin, Central PA. I just want to take a minute. Thank you guys for all the really positive feedback, and I'm really happy to hear that both the funding on the Ben Franklin side and the services have been meaningful and helpful for you guys. The good news is this is all thanks to you all, and your support of the Ben Franklin line item at the Commonwealth through the DCE budget. On a really self-serving note, this year with the governor's proposed budget that's come out, the dollar line item that's in there represents a second year of a 50% cut.
in Ben Franklin program. So that basically means if the budget sticks as it is proposed at this moment on the Ben Franklin side, the line item for all Ben Franklin activities statewide is 14.5. And for us, across the 32 counties that we serve, that represents about $3.5 million to do everything, which basically means more folks are going to come in the door looking for support, looking for assistance that we're not going to be able to do. And one thing that none of our communities can afford is to walk prospective entrepreneurs and say, oh, sorry, the seed money, the help that can make a difference and can get you guys established. Unfortunately, we just won't be able to do the number of new startups that the Commonwealth really needs, that the communities really need.
One thing that's also, I just want to add to this, is Ben's brought in really high caliber people.
Yeah.
High caliber people that don't have a predatory nature like a venture capitalist would, in a way that has conflict of interest. They're really backing us. It's almost like, hey, I mean, you know, you bring someone of Dick's caliber coming in. I mean, he's, you know, and you put him in your business, and you know he's not there to do something, you know, or you know, it's a partnership. I'll tell you, it's fantastic, and we have a problem here in Pennsylvania sometimes of finding people with that outside perspective. And Ben's done a great job, I think, bringing people who were successful, aggregating them under the Ben, and making them available, or finding entrepreneurs and helping them get through their problems. I think that's the best thing. You know what? The money's great from the investment side, I think, but ultimately it's the talent. I think the people that you have is what get, because you know what? We can find the money.
That's great.
No, from the investment side, but I'm talking about.
The other, and this is just sort of playing on, there's so many positive things going on here, and the momentum in New York is fantastic. The partnership with our college is amazing. We do need more facility space, anything that can help to build out the ecosystem so that the next conversation can be with 20 of these guys instead of 4 of these guys. I think that's very reasonable, very possible, and very probable with what your college has planned. We want to do everything in our power, Ben Franklin, to support that. So I'm actually really happy to announce here, Joe Hackett has joined us as part of our Ben Franklin talent team as a local York County presence, and bringing his investor expertise, and will allow us to actually plant somebody and embed somebody in the community in York. Again, I have no idea how to pay for it, but I'm really thrilled to be able to bring more talent to the party and add every little tool that we can to York and to this ecosystem and this community that's building out. I don't want us to airdrop in from another location and try to serve you guys, because it's just really hard to do to the degree that you deserve. So I'm really happy that we'll have a York County person to be part of this partnership.
Awesome.
Yeah, by the way, when I say, because it is fine, I mean, I came from a different perspective. You know, where I was coming from, I had access to dollars. What it was local expertise. You know, what's the local market, what's the local job? What are people paying people? I mean, you guys have so much market intelligence here, it's unbelievable. And you bring it together in a way that allows us to operate here where we don't have that same network that you would have in some of these more mature markets.
I think for a lot of companies too, the other issue is, especially when we're talking about technology companies, we're talking about hard companies that are developing new and innovative products, that type of activity is really hard to finance. A conventional lender doesn't want to finance the soft stuff. They want to put money on a building, they want to put money on machinery, assets that can be taken back if something goes south. So the collateralized lending is out there, but money for R&D, money to hire that engineer, money to put somebody on doing some prototypes is just really much more hard to find. It is.
By the way, Steve, I think you've been working with entrepreneurs too long. You just hired somebody with no idea how you're going to pay for it.
Sounds about right.
I figured I'd be talking to Mark.
Yeah.
Mark, you just sold your house, buddy.
Well, it's funny. We joke about. I mean, you know, we're doing really well, and you know, we actually I take pleasure in reinvesting our earnings here and doing things. And you know, at some point, we've even talked about doing investment in other companies. It's not our company's mission. We do have a couple. You know, you have to look at what you want to stay focused on what you do, but you know, at some point, you know, here's the other thing. I think we aggregate these companies here. We build what we do. There will be some exits at some point that will make the news. And that is the best flag to wave. It's like I always say, the Sutter's Mill, you know, when they found that gold, they came. And I think that's the best press you can get. The successes, that gets people's attention. So, you know, we build this up. You're waiting for that fish to catch that hook, and all of a sudden you're off to the races. So and if you have a couple other companies sitting around, next thing you know so I think it's all about aggregating. I think working with the college. This is a model that, especially the big investors, understand. Wow, they've got all the things that a small business or growing businesses has here in New York, and I'm not dealing with all that regulate BS out there in the Silicon Valley or out in New York City, where I'm getting nailed for whatever reason it is. Anyway.
If I can, I want to share a thought. Instead of a question, it's sort of a hypothesis. It's maybe more for Ben Franklin and the economical and that kind of stuff. I'm getting sick of hearing this, but I hadn't shared with you. So I'm new to politics, and I led a pretty sizable company, about 120 folks here in New York for a lot of years. And we got a lot better at recruiting college talent, okay? And there was a lot of industrial engineers, so, and York's done a great job. But traditionally, York, wasn't that engineering school. It's getting there. It's doing great. This is a great thing. But we recruited a lot from Penn State, RIT up in New York, and Purdue in particular, and some others.
Great to hear.
Okay. And what I found, and then at the same time, we're trying to hire these senior people. This was sort of a consulting engineering kind of thing, not growing on trees, okay? What I generally found was that York is a very good retention vehicle, I call it, but it's a very difficult recruiting vehicle. So what you found here is a nice little sweet spot because you got, and if people didn't have some kind of a tie to the area, it was very difficult to get them to take the leap. Those that did, they loved it once they were here. And so what you've got here is the college, so that's kind of their tie to the area. They're here as students, whether they grew up here or came here from New Jersey, so they're kind of willing to give it a shot. I would suggest it's much more, and I also facilitate a couple of CEO groups with the High Center and with YPO. Everybody is really struggling to recruit talent in mass, okay? So, and there is that sweet spot where you catch somebody going from millennial to kind of, or from single adult in New York City to wanting to settle down. You got to catch them at just the right spot though, because if they've already got a kid in school in Virginia or somewhere, that's tough too. So what I want to come around with, and something that, I don't know if it's state dollars, it might even be a local thing. We've got an aging population, okay? And your story, Mark, you sort of encapsulized where I'm going with this. You talked about your father. I'm sorry to hear that. So just hold that thought for a moment. We've got, and I'm sure my fellow political folks here would agree, a message that we hear from our voters, grandparents and parents, is they want their children and grandchildren coming back to York, okay? I would also suggest that as those parents and grandparents age, youngest baby boomer this year is going to be 55 years old. We have a huge demographic crisis right on on the doorstep here. Yeah. A lot of those folks are paying, there's a lot of examples, but let's just talk about healthcare. Okay, or will be paying for healthcare, nursing home type care, assisted living, whatnot, that traditionally adult children would have provided, like you're helping to provide for your father, recognizing you don't live here. Okay, so that comes at a cost to the community, to government, to everybody. If we can sort of turn that on its ear and use these parents and grandparents to help recruit their children and grandchildren back to York and start to message that, and we're not going to solve it sitting right here, but sort of a PR, I'm not sure who should spearhead that, but nobody's doing it. I'm not sure government should do it. Maybe we help pay for it. We have a whole bunch of recruiters living in the county, and it's mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. They don't have the story, they have the motivation to recruit these people back that are living in Chicago, that are living in wherever, that are starting to raise a family. If we can somehow help them message that to their children and grandchildren across the country and explain, here's all of the companies in New York, here's all the great things, all the jobs that are available, and make it easy to do. I don't have a solution right here in front of us, but I would suggest that we could kill a lot of birds with one stone, including those people are much more likely to want to come back to the area because they have a tie like you did, and they are going to help us take care of those aging parents and grandparents, which we are ill-equipped to do.
So it's funny you say this. So Dataforma here, one of the main reasons is because I was commuting between San Francisco and New York City, and I would always route through BWI, see my parents, hang out, run up to New York. I was living in both places, and I remember, and I got introduced to some people here, great people, Daryl Moronic, my partner, we built this business kind of as a side thing. But I always thought, oh, it'd be great, I'll come write off my visits to York. I'll get to see mom and dad, and as they age, I'll have a reason to take it. The plan was to keep them in their home and do all this stuff. Absolutely true. That's how I rediscovered York. Coming and being closer to my parents as they were getting older. Things didn't work out for a bunch of reasons that were medically beyond our control. But that's a powerful incentive. And I see that with a lot of also, I think the people who work for our company say they have family here locally. There's ties, they go deep. And I think, I don't know how you do that, but that is, I think that is something. I think people, especially after you spend a few years in a big urban area, and you're like, maybe it wasn't so bad. All the things I hated about that town, pretty awesome. It's just, that's children growing up. It's Holden Caulfield. It's Catcher in the Rye.
I don't know if there's a legislative component to this, but when through Ben Franklin, through the KIZ, when I first started doing my R&D around the grease leaf, the product, I had all these interns come from York College and from Millersville and others, and I just turned them loose, and we were doing some great things. And then I got a few up to senior level, and I was like, well, are you guys thinking about hanging around? Could I hire any of you? And across the board, they all said, no, we're leaving. And I said, well, what's the deal? And I'm thinking the whole KIZ isn't going to work because we're investing all this and they're all leaving anyway. And they said, we can't afford to pay back our college loans. We have to go to some other location that pays us more so we can pay down these college loans. And I said, well, how about, and I thought about it for a while and I came back and I said, how about I restructure my offering? How about there's a significant component in here where I do college reimbursement or college loan matching, and that worked.
Wow.
And I got a few of those folks to stay. They turned out like Lisa Williams, who is a York College graduate, Eric Straub, who was another York College. They were gone. And then when I put that out there, they said, oh yeah, okay, we can stay now, because now what we're going to make is now leveraged in a way that we're paying down our college tuition loan bills. The hires I just made, there's a package in there. I just hired a guy today and hired a guy last week. I'm taking a portion of their salary, or to me it's like a pool of money. So maybe, I don't know if there's something about the tax implications of that or whatever, if there's any way to incentivize small businesses or businesses in general to be able to help folks with that. Maybe that's a way of stemming some of
It's
that.
funny you said that, because that was actually a follow-up, and we usually, I think I speak for most of us, we kind of cringe at more government intrusion and spending. However, I know some of the states are incentivizing, people that work. And to your point, you sort of answered my question, as if helping with college loans. But what that might be an idea is like a tax credit to businesses who help with college loans.
I'm doing it.
More money.
So what do you do for the kid who comes out who doesn't have student loan debt?
Well, so I should probably ask my HR advisor on how this is supposed to be answered or whatever. But I don't know that I've always offered. It's a great question. Yeah, I think I've got the flexibility to do that. So I'll just tell you, one of the guys I hired was friends with one of my current employees. And I was trying to come up with a way of, like, he had come down from New York and he had an expectation. He said, here's my salary. And I thought, well, I can't really pay that. And this other guy that works here said, he's got college loans, and I know you've done this before, and maybe just a little subtle thing, and that's how I restructured it. So if I'm able to kind of match up where it's a value, and if it's not, then more take home or whatever. So that might be part of that solution. But right now, the last couple hires I've made, that was highly valued by those employees, and it made the difference.
We did that too. We've done that for college loans. We've helped them out, take them a little burden off it.
But we get a benefit for doing that. That's just money we got to take out, and they're paying taxes on it, we're paying taxes on it, and all that. But so maybe there's something that can help incentivize that process at the employer level. My personal experience is it's made a difference in being able to retain the talent that's already here, the families here. They felt they had to leave so they could pay back their college loans.
If you remember the earlier days of KIZ, there was an internship remuneration. If you were in the KIZ participating with one of the institutions of higher learning.
Yes.
You were getting remunerated. I believe it was through DCED, not through Ben. I don't think that was a Ben function.
No, that was a KIZ DCED thing, yes.
I almost wonder if it couldn't be a function of a KIZ benefit.
Or something, just somewhere. That was always big for us. I mean, I've gotten through some of the startup. I shouldn't think about where I am now, but where the next company like ours and what they would value. But when I had to stick interns to like just try stuff and like it might fail, it might work and whatnot, to have that kind of funding available was really critical because I had to fail a lot early on. And to fail with interns where I didn't have to take money away from somewhere else and it was like some matching and stuff, that was very valuable.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's not there in the KSE.
Could you tie that to just also where they work? They need to stay in the area. If they lose it, they lose the benefit. Like, it's kind of like, you go to the military, you sign up, and it's like, okay, you got to sign up for 8 years and you get this benefit. Well, okay, you can come to Pennsylvania, we're going to help you with the education, but if you leave, your interest rate's going to double. I don't know.
Well, something there. Yeah, something that there's an
incentive, like you come in here to invest, and then it'll self-select people who want to come here in the first place.
Yeah.
You're going to say,
I'm sorry. So we're almost out of time in terms of what we were allocating. I think the conversation has been fantastic. Are there any final thoughts before we put a bow on this? I heard something this morning, Kristin, in the press conference, and it was from Rebecca Euler at the NFIB, and she was talking about small business owners and entrepreneurs and them being the rock stars in our community. And I think we are just so blessed and fortunate to have the three of you here. So if we could give them a round of applause for everything you've done.
there you go.
Top-notch partners and CEOs. So thanks, guys, for everything you do and for a really insightful conversation.
I just want to say one thing. We do view this as a partnership. I'm also of the idea that government should do as minimal as possible. But I also think that here there's a great partnership going on here between us. It's not necessarily financially related. Often it's just cooperating in ways that we want to help you do what you do. Please, we're a resource for you for things. If you have things you want, and we're happy to help. I mean, one of the joys I actually get coming back here is making a difference. Not just, my business is great. It's going to be great whatever happens at this point. But we're making a difference in other ways here, especially with York College, and that's a dividend that comes from, I think, some people do charities. I always believe the best way to do development is to develop businesses that continue to exist and are sustainable forever. That's the best way to do social progress. Social progress comes from, that's the only way.
Yep.
And we need more of that in this country.